the webinar over to Jerry Regier with Public Strategies.
Thank you, Julie, and welcome to each one of you for this afternoon's webinar. We hope that you will enjoy and get a lot out of what is shared. The agenda that we plan to go over is teaching core SRAE concepts, preparing to share survey results, customizing your messaging of those survey results, and then some data visualization. When we talk about survey results, it's the results of the program which you can get from your performance measures data submitted to the SRAE PAS portal, as well as from added questions that you may ask at the end of the performance measures data. So that's the survey results that we're referring to for your own programs. And guest grantees will present under the customizing messaging section to give some practical examples of how they have used what we are talking about. Tracy?
Thank you, Jerry. My name is Tracy Pike. I work with Ascend, and it's my honor and privilege today to journey alongside you with our presenters, Jerry Regier with Public Strategies, whom you just met, and Marianne Mozak, who will be speaking shortly, also with Ascend. And as Jerry mentioned, we have our guest grantees that will be popping in and putting some meat on the bones of some of the context. So I'd like to, next slide, Julie, talk about some of the objectives. I kind of consider myself more of a people person until I realized how much data movement kind of explored how much I was able to impact students with the messaging. So I always consider myself a people person until that data movement showed lives being changed. And I once heard it said that we count people because people count. And data has become really, I don't know, exciting to me. So today, some of the objectives will be that by the end of the webinar, we will be able to recognize survey results are directly impacted by the effectiveness of the facilitator to communicate the required topics consistently throughout curricular content that help youth clearly understand and internalize those lesson concepts. That's what that measurement, that movement looks like. And then we will be able to understand sharing survey results with the various stakeholders and how that can build collaboration and SRE program support around consensus goals, mission focus, target audiences, and intended outcomes for health and well-being. We will be able to interpret survey results specifically for stakeholders relative to their mutual interest and what they need to know. And we will be able to customize messaging to specific stakeholders in order to raise awareness of the program and its results and encourage them to discuss positive survey results in their spheres of influence, which may be at home or schools or in the community. So I would like to introduce to you, next slide, Julie, Marianne Mozak, President of Ascend, who will be launching us into this exciting journey today. Marianne?
Well, thank you, Tracy, and I want to add my welcome to all of you, and I certainly hope that what we're going to be sharing today will be a benefit to your programs, to strengthen your SRAE programs. So welcome to all of you. And I am going to be covering 3 areas here, teaching the core SRA concepts and why that's going to be important to your survey results, and then how to actually prepare those results for sharing so that they have the greatest impact and most effect. And then, recognizing who are the stakeholders that want to hear these, and then customizing our messages. So let's just dive in and talk a little bit about teaching the core SRA concepts. And what you see here is identifying key concepts. And what are those concepts? Well, obviously it's optimal health and risk elimination. And what we know is that this is basic, and it's really the what and the how regarding teaching SRA, and that when we teach those key concepts, that's actually going to affect survey results. So it's all about movement. And so why is it important to understand the optimal health concept model? Because it's also about movement, right? First of all, we're attempting to reinforce students who are not sexually active that they would maintain that no risk status. But then we're also attempting to impact movement as much as possible from high risk to low risk to no risk. And so, therefore, the effectiveness really of communicating key concepts of optimal health and risk elimination is going to be very important, and it will directly impact, the movement that your program is going to have, if any. And what we're going to also notice, you can see the graph on the right-hand side of the screen here, talks about the holistic model, that health is really that balance between physical, social, mental, spiritual, and it does need that balance. And we will see that survey results will reflect so many aspects of that definition of health. So keep teaching those key concepts. Now, the review and integration of required A through F concepts is important, and we're going to assume that most grantees, all of you grantees, would be well acquainted with those concepts, right? But it's important that you ensure that they're integrated into your lessons and that they're repeated often. Remember, repetition is the mother of learning. So the more that the required concepts and topics can be repeated and related throughout the curriculum presentation, the more effect it's going to have on students, and especially their knowledge, their attitudes, and their intentions. So to do that, we're going also to emphasize the fact that facilitators will need enough time and to give the emphasis that they are due. And so when your implementation plan should call for that, adequate time be given for any kind of presentation of topics, because it's going to show up on your survey results. Right. And I'm not going to read the A through F concepts, but suffice it to say that when we look at this list, there's such a group of concepts. There's all kinds, personal responsibility to refraining from non-marital sex, avoiding poverty, talking about healthy relationships, especially in relationship to marriage and maybe the formation of a family in the future. And then other risk behaviors and dating violence, sexual coercion. So we know that there are a lot of concepts here to cover, but we also have to be aware that as we're making the case for our survey results, all of those kinds of topics are going to be reflected in what we share. All right, so the other thing when we're teaching, and facilitators will appreciate this, that self-efficacy and skill building will be very important. Self-efficacy is going to be an indicator of movement on those results. And so changing mindsets, I'm going to just refer to Carol Dweck here, who her definition about changing mindsets is really very, very insightful. And here's how she defines a mindset. A mindset is a theory or the perception that people have about themselves. A mindset can be either fixed, in which people believe their abilities or talents are permanent or fixed traits, or they believe their abilities can be developed if they work hard and are dedicated to an endeavor. So again, when we're talking about self-efficacy, we're talking about movement, which starts with what? Inspiring young people and teaching them a path, like how to get there, setting long and short-term goals, and also helping to strengthen their external assets, of course, will help self-efficacy. And then on top of that, being cognizant of helping students really understand and apply that knowledge will be skill building, and that lessons in refusal skills and role playing, also very important. So, students need to know, why am I learning this? How does this apply? So we're just going to just talk now about, teaching those SRA concepts in context. And if you understand key concepts, theoretical frameworks, and different models, it can really enhance your learning outcomes. So what do we mean by, context here? Well, we know that context is critical to learning. And if a student is going to be able to apply the information, they're going to have context. Why am I learning this? How does this matter in my life? Why is it important? And all of those things are going to go into how they're going to receive and how lives are going to be changed, really. I think Tracy said that before, that, data really means changed lives, movement on those scales. So, for instance, when you're teaching about self-regulation, it would be in the context of developing what? Self-control to make the healthy choices that would move you away, eliminate risk so that you could achieve optimal health. If you're teaching about poverty, for instance, it's in the context, what? Of making healthy decision to eliminate risks that may hinder your ability to pursue academic or career goals. So, really, survey results are directly impacted by the effectiveness of the facilitator to communicate key concepts clearly and consistently in the context of optimal health and elimination, and with a view towards self-efficacy, and added on to that skill building, so that a student comes away with, I can do this. I can do this. Very important. All right, so let's continue now. So we've delivered our program, and now we need to look at our survey results. And a friend reminded me, she said, I don't understand why so many programs, they let their survey results just sit on the shelf. And she uses hers all the time. She'll be one of our presenters, and I think you'll understand why it's really important to use those results, because they can strengthen your programs. So if we're going to assess your survey findings, you're looking at over, what your students have told you about the trends, about their attitudes, their knowledge. You need to ask some questions. What is the potential impact of the data that you're going to report on? How can your findings help to maybe raise awareness? Maybe there are schools or community partners that don't even know that your program exists. And so your survey results is kind of like a foot in the door to tell them about your program and the good work you're doing. Perhaps your survey results could actually inspire improvement and in your internal, workings in your organization. Wow, we're not getting much movement here. We need to, maybe have a focus group or change our curriculum, make a mid-course adjustment. And then you can motivate action, inform policy. And then another point you want to look at your survey findings is, how do the either positive or negative movement on attitudes, knowledge, or intentions, because they are predictors of behavior, they're going to be very important to look at. And, it's really important that we don't underestimate the value of those three, attitudes, knowledge, and intentions, because they can be that positive trajectory that gets us to statistically significant behavior change. And then looking at your survey results and examining how stakeholders might use those same results to strengthen their program. Or maybe it could open the door for them to have a more collaborative attitude or desire to link arms with your program. And then finally, your survey results could actually be used to support funding, and we'll be talking about that later, one of our guest grantees, and help you with your program's sustainability efforts. So, who are the stakeholders that might be interested in what students are reporting? So, of course, parents, schools, community partners, policymakers, those are the ones. And that's certainly not an exhaustive list. But we know that for the purposes of our discussion today, we're going to focus on these four. And when we focus on those, we're going to look at those stakeholders and we're going to think about examining our survey results and looking at insights like our successes that might apply not just to our group, but our organization or our message, but also to what other folks might be trying to accomplish in the community. We can also look at those results and see what kind of barriers or challenges that need to be made mid-course corrections, as I spoke of earlier. And then identify survey results that indicate student attitude, knowledge, and intentions, because they are crucial behavior markers. And I mentioned that before, I don't need to repeat that. And then finally, identify survey results that each stakeholder might find interesting or knowing. And then when you have that kind of information, you can make a custom plan that will resonate with the stakeholder that you're approaching. So let's look at customizing that. Now, if you look at we just talked about that group generally, but when you look at parents, right? Parents are typically what? They're interested in almost any aspect of their child's health and well-being. So there's a whole lot of things that you could share there, but you probably won't be able to share everything, but parents are very interested in the well-being of their children. Parents, caregivers, trusted adults, who's ever in charge there will want that information, can use that information. And we're going to talk about how that information can be used with one of our grantees. And then school administrators, they're what typically interested in academic success, and we understand that. But they're also interested in environmental and social safety of their students. So there may be some data points there that you can share with them because that is of interest. And then community partners. And when I talk about community partners, I'm not just talking about, service providers, but I'm talking about, community leaders, politicians, political leaders, and business people. Because communities partners, they may be health oriented and focusing on a particular risk behavior, smoking or drugs or alcohol use among teens. And then there's going to be community partners that they want broader information because they're looking at the well-being of the whole community, of the whole community constituency, the elderly, preschool kids, adolescents, low-income adolescents, etc. So you can customize it to your community partners, but they want to know trends about the quality of life in their community. And that can be a really good talking point, and it can be a way to, approach community stakeholders with your information. And then, of course, policymakers on the local, the state, and the federal level. Policymakers, of course, are interested in your program. They're basically saying, is this program working? Is it having a positive effect? Should we continue to fund it? Should we give them more funding? So there's all kinds of questions in the minds of policymakers. And when you can go in and actually show the positive results of your program, that can have a tremendous impact. All right, so now let's look at customizing those messages to those particular groups that we've just talked about in a little more detail. In terms of parents, if we want to encourage parents in that very important role, parents, and when I say parents, I'm meaning trusted adults and caregivers, that they have a role, that we want them to play in terms of communication and affirmation, which is so very important to their child's development, and choices. So, a question about do teens feel that they have a trusted parent or adult to go to will be of some very important information. Also, attitudes toward other risk behaviors like alcohol and drugs will be important. So here's a sample survey question. I'm likely to talk with my parent or guardian or caregiver about sex. So that's a question on your survey. Your entry showed that 34% of your students thought that they were very likely that they could do that. 49% said they didn't think so. All right, that's a little concerning. All right, so when you see that, when you're giving your program, you may be really considering that in the message that you bring. And in your exit survey, your results, you see here, there's quite a bit of movement here. 61% after your program is very likely to talk to a parent, caregiver, or trusted adult, and only 8% not likely to. So that's a very important message that parents can use. And, it's interesting because parents typically, why is this important? Well, most of the time parents don't know if their child is open to talking about sex, or they may feel awkward about it. But if you can give them information that actually shows that they are really interested in talking to a parent, they will, perhaps maybe make some changes in their own communication style to reach out to their child, right? So this really motivates action, and it reinforces the positive trends that you're trying to set. And what else are you communicating about your program? You are really elevating the role of parents and caregivers and trusted adults in that child's life. And parents and those who care for young people will care about that. So with that, I would now like to introduce Charlene Bosley. And Charlene is the data collector for an organization in South Central Indiana called Clarity. And she is going to share with us now how they have used data in reaching parents. Charlene?
Good afternoon. I am excited to be able to share how Clarity has used our survey findings to encourage parent involvement and talking with their children about sex and relationships. We are always looking for ways to use the gold mine of data that we collect. Several years ago, based on survey questions we created to measure the effectiveness of our programming by comparing the answers from the entry survey to our exit survey, we noticed that we were not seeing the movement we had hoped for in our sixth grade program regarding students' willingness to talk to parents or a trusted adult about the topics we covered. So we assessed that although the movement was positive and in the right direction, we had hoped to see stronger exit survey results, specifically surrounding their intent to talk to their parent or trusted adult. So in addition to what is asked on the federal performance measure, here are two questions we ask on the entry and exit surveys that are unique to our program regarding this topic. One, I plan to talk to my parent or trusted adult about sexual activities, and I plan to talk to my parent or trusted adult about puberty. And we use a 5-point Likert scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. The goal is to move more students to respond on the exit survey to strongly agree or agree, and the plan to the plan to talk to their parents or trusted adult. How could we be more intentional to get the students to talk to their trusted adults? And we began to wonder if they had something to actually discuss with their parent or adult, trusted adult, that it might be easier for them to do so. So with those efforts in mind, we created a take-home parent resource page for our sixth grade students. The parent resource page encourages parents to continue the conversation that we begin in the classroom regarding decision making, critical health behaviors, boundary setting, and the whole person circle, sexual activity, and sexual risk avoidance. We ask the students to complete as many of the activities with their parents or go-to adult as possible. The worksheet includes boxes to be checked off once the activity is completed. We felt this would open the door for further conversation between the student and their trusted adult, as well as show the adults that these types of conversations don't have to be intimidating or scary. So, for example, we have 5 boxes or activities that they can select from. An example would be one activity suggests help your students complete a family tree on a separate piece of paper. They are also given a few websites for assistance and told to discuss relationships, marriages, and future family trees. Another activity is to visit a website such as defendyoungminds.org and learn more about the can-do strategy to avoid the dangers of pornography. This resource tool was created and implemented because of the scrutiny of our collected data. In fact, we did see an increase in the movement of the measure in the appropriate direction regarding students talking to their parents and or trusted adult. To make parents to make the parent take-home sheet even more valuable, there is a quiz on the back side, which is an optional resource for the teachers. And the trusted adult or parent is able to see what was discussed and what the students learned during the week. This offered another opportunity to engage in conversation with one another and for the parents to share their personal family values. We continue to evaluate our survey results and look for additional ways to reach out to parents and trusted adults. What is really exciting is when a parent or trusted adult or grandparent shares with us how their students reached out and talked to them after attending one of our presentations, resulting in our reaching the expected goal, which is to encourage parent involvement and talking with their children about sex and relationships. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Charlene. That was great. That was great to hear. And I love the fact that what you did, you just did, a mid-course correction there. You said, we're not getting movement. We want to do better in this area. And so you put your brain trust together there to create a way to involve not only parents, but I also noted that is this, let me ask you this, do they return that quiz or that homework? Is it a homework assignment they turn back to the teacher?
It's a resource that the teacher can use. So there's a quiz on there that they can use for grading purposes, but it allows, again, for the parents to see what was discussed. It is something that they take home and use at home, like a
So it
homework
has,
page or whatever.
it kind of has a multi purpose there, because if now you involve the parent, now you involve the school. So what are you doing? You're building the external assets that can really, increase the self-efficacy of a student to make good choices. So hats off to Clarity for that good work. So let's now look a little at how to customize a message toward school administrators or teachers. And of course, you want to go in and maybe demonstrate to the school personnel the positive impact for your program. What trends would you like the school internally to reinforce? And what's interesting about this is when you share those kinds of survey results, if you're really getting good results on, say, goal setting or wanting to graduate or stay in school, those are the kinds of messages that a school can translate into almost every subject and advise their teachers to continue to reinforce those positives. So that you can see that the survey results can really have a kind of a triple or rippling effect throughout a school community. Now, it can also show what areas there may be of concern that a school could address. Let's say bullying or sexting or something like that. Here is an example of a sample question. I would speak up or ask for help if I'm being bullied in person or online via text while gaming or through other social media. On the entry results that you received, 24% said, oh, that's not true of me. But equally, 24% said that's true of me. So that could be concerning, right? Now on the exit result, you see there's 19% that they've lowered that a little bit. So more of them are feeling like they can talk to someone if they're being bullied. Very true of me, 34%. So you saw some good movement there, but perhaps, that would not be sufficient. Maybe that's an area that you can highlight to a school to really, say, hey, maybe your school could undertake a campaign to address bullying or sexting and posters, essay contests, reinforcement again by every teacher in every class. So survey results can go, are both positive and sometimes negative. And that's also a help though. We have to see that not as, oh, we didn't do a good job, but we need to see it as an open door to become more effective. And I believe that we can do that when we look at our survey results with a very objective eye. So I want to introduce now Stephanie Pecan, and Stephanie is actually the program manager at Regen Next. I know her title says sex health coordinator, but I don't know, perhaps she has gotten a position change there. But welcome, Stephanie, and we're going to ask you now to share your experience in sharing survey results with schools.
Thanks so much, Marianne. Yeah, Regen Next has become our own organization, our own LLC. So I am now the program coordinator. So that's why the change in the title. But my name is Stephanie Pecan. I'm the program coordinator for Regen Next. We're an organization located out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, so Southwest Michigan. And we work with about 600 to 1,200 middle school and high school students each year across 3 different counties in Michigan. And over the last year and a half, 2 years, and I'm sure some of you have noticed too, we've noticed interest nationally when it comes to people being interested in what's being taught in the schools right now, especially when it comes to sex ed. We've seen more parents become involved in school board meetings, parents asking more questions, inquiring more. And at our local level, we personally have seen that there's been more interest and reactivation, reconvening of the sex ed advisory boards. And if you're not familiar with what a sex ed advisory board is, basically it's a committee consisting of administration, teachers, parents, current students, clergy, other community members. And so it's a group of people that guides the direction and approval of the sex ed in the school they're representing. So just to kind of, explain in a nutshell. But basically, so they were reconvening these meetings, and at these specific meetings, really the goal was to review and reassess the curriculum. They wanted to make sure that it was aligned with the state laws. And then they also wanted to obtain a reapproval. So really, wanting this information to be able to continue to move forward. And so it was really important for us to be at that meeting. Grateful that we were invited to be at that meeting to be able to represent our program and to be able to present results from our pre and post surveys to show that our programming has had a positive impact on their students. And that really helps to build that trust and confidence too. And also it was a great opportunity to share about SRAE, and especially for those that may not be familiar with sexual risk avoidance. and just to be able to educate on the value of it, the efficacy of it, and then to be able to make that connection with our survey results to show that this type of approach has been well received by their students and has had a positive impact on their students. So our students who participate in our full programming complete a pre and post survey. It's surveys that are provided through our curriculum. And at the advisory board meetings, we did provide our most recent report to the advisory board members. This is a report we always provide to the schools after we work with them, but we want to make sure they had it with them at this meeting. And then at the meeting, I presented on specific results. So, I just highlighted certain points to be able to fully demonstrate the impact that our program was having. So just to give you, an overview of what that presentation looked like, it wasn't super long. It was just a 13-slide presentation with charts and graphs and student quotes. And I first shared a county-specific stat, and it's through MyFi, which is a health survey that's distributed in Michigan every 2 years in the middle schools and high schools, basically to assess health risk behaviors, also serves as a needs assessment for the schools as well. And so the stat I shared was that most teens are not engaging in sex. So, and I know, I'm sure that's a stat that we're all familiar with at the state levels and national levels, but I wanted to share that at their county level. First of all, to dispel the myth that most teens are having sex, but also show the relevance for SRAE programming in their community, but also to make the connection to show that not only are we seeing this at the county level, but we're seeing it also at the state level and nationally as well, and that we're showing the same trends when we look at the survey data from their students as well. Okay, so we're seeing more and more students who are choosing to delay sex. And then I shared additional charts, graphs, and statistics for the quantitative results. So I wanted to be able to show movement from pre to post on outcomes and key concepts. So there were basically, 3 outcomes or 3 key concepts I was focusing on in this specific presentation. But one was the impact on behavior intent to delay sex. And so I shared some of the pre and post movement, the percentages of students who indicated they were waiting for sex. So those who were indicating they were delaying sex at least until after high school or until marriage. And so I showed those statistics for the most recent report for that school, but also this was an opportunity for me to show trends over the course of the time that we've been working with that school as well. For this specific school, we've been working with them for 4 years. So I was able to show the trends over the 4 years that not only were we showing consistency in the percentage of students that were indicating that they were waiting to have sex, but we're continuing to show an increase year after year. The other key concept was increasing knowledge and understanding of physical, emotional, physical, and relational risks of teen sex and how to avoid these risks. So for example, sharing that the percentage of students who demonstrate knowledge that using a condom is not 100% protection from STIs. So again, showing the movement or the improvement from pre to post to show that there was an increase in knowledge with these specific risks and that they know how to avoid them. And then increase confidence in the ability to build healthy relationships and set boundaries. So I shared the percentage of students who indicated that they will be better able to build healthy relationships and also to resist peer pressure. So in addition to the quantitative data, I also wanted to expound on that and reinforce it by sharing the qualitative results as well. So these were, the students' comments from, open-ended questions that we asked them. And when I was putting this data together, I basically categorized all of the responses, and then I would pull a response from each of the categories so that I could have a full representation of the student feedback. And on the post survey, the questions that allow for students to have open-ended responses are like, why are they choosing or not choosing to wait for sex? What did they learn through the program? What's an area in their life that is going to change as a result of the education they received? So by sharing these responses, it allowed for us to share the students' voices in their own words, on how the program has directly impacted them, how they are able to utilize the skills when it comes to navigating relationships. And so, I showed the quantitative data that there is an increase in knowledge and behavior intent and attitudes, but I wanted to be able to show, okay, well, what does it actually mean to the students? And how are they planning to apply it? So it's really valuable to be able to use that qualitative data, those responses from the students. And so that's really, I wanted to demonstrate through their voices that it's truly having an impact on them and it's relevant to them. So I'll just give you some examples for how I shared that. So basically, I would share the quantitative data for each of those concepts, and then I would share some of the student responses to support that. So for example, when I talked about the impact on behavior intent and those who are choosing to delay sex, then I shared, a handful of responses from the students to demonstrate or to share why, why are they making that decision to choose to wait. So for example, one of the students said, I don't want to deal with the emotional and physical consequences of having sex when all I should be worried about at my age is myself. And then when I was talking about increasing or the impact on their confidence and their ability to build healthy relationships and set boundaries, I shared a handful of the student responses there as well. So I'll give you a few examples. So one of the questions or prompts, an area that will change in my life is, and a student responded, how to clearly and better say no to something I don't want to do. Another student said how to respond to situations that are toxic and healthy. And then another one, which really showed real life application that they can use right now. Not only can they use it right now, but it's skills they can take with them throughout their teen years and into adulthood. But this specific student responded, I no longer am talking to a guy from my school because I realized it wasn't a healthy relationship. And just a few others here. So I also wanted to show the impact that the programming had on their ability to think critically, to think about their future, also, developing a healthy self-concept. And so one of the comments in response to an area that will change in my life is how I think about stuff and what would be better for myself. And then the last quote here, really just demonstrating the need and relevancy of the programming. This really helped a lot. So this is another student comment. This really helped a lot. Didn't even know half of these things and probably would never have until it was too late. But now I know better. Thank you for everything you taught me. So those are just some examples for how I structured and presented the data. I really wanted to tell a story that was supported using the students' voices. So, thankfully the meeting went well. The board members were pleased. They indicated they'd like to continue moving forward, and that's really the outcome that we were hoping for. Like I said earlier, it's part of our regular programming for us to give the schools a report after we're done working with them. But being able to take it a step further, because, we don't know if they're really, taking a look in detail at those reports. So being able to take it a step further and, be with them face to face, whether it's virtually or in person, and being able to demonstrate the efficacy of the program, being able to, represent the program, be able to show those results, pull out and highlight valuable information is really powerful. And it really helps to build trust and confidence. So I just encourage you all to create opportunities and take advantage of opportunities to present and highlight your survey data. So thank you.
Okay, wow, thank you, Stephanie. That was great. Yeah, if you want to come and organize my life anytime, that would be great, because that was an extremely comprehensive and cohesive presentation. It's like you hit all of the areas. I love the fact that you took the national data and took it to the state, the county, and then you actually showed your data in relation to that. Very positive. Also, how you showed trend data of your program in the school over those years. And I think too, no one could underestimate the value of those student voices, because that's really where where it's all happening at, right? When we hear from the students, the impact or the decisions they're making. So I think that was excellent. And one thing we know is that teachers in one school talk to teachers in other schools, right? And so they, you gave them a lot of information there in a very cohesive presentation that they could share then, with another teacher and say, hey, maybe you could look at this program for your school. So again, the ripple effect of the good work of sharing those survey results. So thank you, Stephanie, so very much.
Thanks, Marianne.
All right, and now let's just look at, customizing a message to community partners. And again, I'm not just talking about service providers, but community leaders, political leaders, business people. So it's a broad swath. And, and what are we trying to do when we're reaching out to those community partners? We're really trying to generate, broader support or involvement with partners in our program. And that's always typically a good thing. So we need to ask ourselves, what are the areas of consensus that we might have with another partner? Do we have the same mission? Do we have the same target population? Are we using some of the same strategies? Do we have the same desired outcomes for health and well-being? So after you assess that and you're looking at that, then you might want to look at what trends are going to be important for a community partner to know, because some of your partners are going to be very health oriented. They're going to be maybe focusing on teenage smoking or drug use or whatever. And so some of the things you find in your survey results could impact or enlighten or enhance the way they approach with other risk behaviors. So let's look at a survey question, a sample question. I feel confident I possess the skills to resist peer pressure. Self-efficacy, right? There it is. It crops up again. And why is that a good question? And why is that a question they may be interested in? Well, because it's kind of a universally transferable principle there, that if I can resist for sexual activity, I could probably resist drugs or alcohol also, because I'm building those internal assets that help me to make good decisions on a number of behavioral options. So on the entry survey, we see that strongly agree, 40% agreed that they could do that. They could resist peer pressure, negative peer pressure. And strongly disagree was 37%. So they're almost equal there. After the program, the exit results showed that strongly agree that they could resist it was 62%, and strongly disagree 5%. Now that is a big movement, right? That's a very positive trend. And what we know is that, a community minded person who's interested, say, in a particular risk behavior, could look at that and say, hey, can we talk to you more about what you're doing, how you're approaching, how you're building that self-efficacy around resisting peer pressure? Someone who is interested in broader concepts of community health are going to be encouraged by that. People in the community who are looking at, community-wide health or the quality of life in the community, they're going to be also encouraged that students are gaining that ability to resist pressure. So let's now look at someone who I'd like to introduce to you, and his name is Bruno Jerome. He's the senior educator at New Jersey Physicians Advisory Group. And Bruno is going to talk to us about some of the partners that his organization is working with and how he has used survey results to build those partnerships. So welcome, Bruno.
Hello, how's everyone doing? So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bruno Jerome, and like as Marianne said, I'm with the Yes You Can program with New Jersey Physicians Advisory Group in New Jersey. So when we think about using our survey results as equity building tools in our communities, I look at it with three different components. You think about who you're going to connect with. You think about how is the feedback that I have currently going to help them, and where do I find these community partners in the first place? So when it comes to us at with the Yes You Can program, firstly, we serve family success centers within each of the districts our students reside in. So these are state-sponsored sites that offer a variety of support services to local families. So it's possible that your state may have similar programs under a different name or under a different structure, but they should be there. Um, and our Yes You Can program, student program, has become a support for both the youth that go to these centers and for the parents. We also work with our county CASA, like Spanish, like CASA, CASA, which is the court-appointed special advocates for children's program. And we actually just did a training session for these adults who work directly with the children in foster care. So we actually did trainings with them to kind of introduce our program to them, introduce what we do with them, not only when it comes to SRA, but also when it comes to financial literacy. So we're working closely with these programs within our county as well. And lastly, we've also begun to have a presence at community health fairs, which I have personally been a part of. So these might be coordinated by your city's or town's health department, and they're usually very welcoming when it comes to welcoming health-based organizations like many of ours. They're usually very open to having you come and setting up a table to present your who you are, to give you visibility for the community, free visibility in the community, to just speak to what you do. You could bring different materials that are different I guess examples of what you teach in the classroom, and they're really open to having you come in and just be a part of their community events. And I was gonna say, especially now, with COVID testing and vaccinations, there are weekly and sometimes even daily community events based around public health in your community. So events are a great opportunity, like I was saying, to connect with community partners like yours, right? To network and also to get free visibility for your program. So you'll get not only are you exposing yourself to these community partners, but you also get the parents and the students and just people in the community to know, hey, we're a program that's in this town or in this city, and this is what we do. So the way that we do share who we are and our data and our survey results with these community partners is that we have an introduction package that we use in all of these spaces, and this promotes our program, and it always contains feedback quotes that we've gotten from both our student and teacher surveys, right? So people love to read what real people have to say about programs like ours, and it provides valuable credibility. I'll say that word again, credibility for the important work that we do. So in my experiences, the qualitative survey results resonate the most because it's personable. So when a community partner can see in a pamphlet that a student who was a part of our program was inspired to say, like, Mr. Bruno helped me realize that I'm a gift, that I have value, and that the choices that I make now matter, right? It can make an impression, right, on these different community organizations, right? And responses like that not only speak to the quality of our program, but the content in our program with just one sentence. So with just that one response that they give, it speaks to the quality of your program and it speaks to what you do in your program. Okay, so in your program, you let these kids know that they're a gift. In your program, you let these kids know that they have value. In your program, you let these kids know that the choices that they make matter. In just one sentence, you can cover all that with just a qualitative response. So overall, many opportunities like these become available because we try our best to get out there in the community. When we do get out there, we try to hold on to the connections that we do make. For people, when it comes to people that we've worked with in the past, we stay connected to them to let us know when these things are going on. And that's how we stay out there, and that's how we stay relevant. And we always stay prepared as well. We're always trying to update our content, update our pamphlets, right? We try to use social media in a way to really help keep ourselves prepared to take advantage of these opportunities in the community. And that's all.
Wow. Well, thank you, Bruno. I want to say too, you are an engaging young man, and I'm sure that when you go to a health fair or you're on a Zoom, people are listening to what you have to say. So hats off to you. I love the fact that you talked about the same thing that Stephanie talked about in terms of sharing that qualitative aspect of your program. And also I didn't even think about the fact that there's so many discussions because of COVID, because of the pandemic, that people, mental health issues, school issues, that we could be inserting ourselves into that conversation. So thank you for that idea. I hope that other people in the audience may kind of latch on to that. It's very insightful. And I thank you very much. All right, so with that, I will now pass over the slide presentation to Jerry Regier, who is the Director of Adolescent Pregnancy Services for Public Strategies, and he is going to talk about customizing your message specifically to policymakers and data visualization. Jerry?
Thank you, Mary Ann. And yes, the final stakeholder that we're highlighting today is the policymakers. And of course, there are policymakers at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And informing them of trends to guide budget and policy decisions impacting youth health and well-being and the status of your program is extremely important. And a strategy for engaging those policymakers is to build relationships with them, just like you would in any other situation, so they know who you are, what your program is about. And when sharing results, mention the other community partners who support your mission, like has been talked about already. Explain how your evidence for the survey questions was developed. Was it an impact study? Was it a pre-post study? Was it your performance measures? And so you explain that, how it was administered and how it was collected, and then explain why your findings are relevant to the community and constituents, and how they can then potentially use that information. Policymakers are interested in findings that indicate the advisability of continuing the program. Obviously, if they're a part of your funding, they're interested. If they're part of perhaps policies of the community and how youth are educated on these subjects within the community. And so all of these are areas that, that you can present to policymakers. Now, in several of these examples, you'll note on the slide, it says the following is to demonstrate messaging is not actual data. The point of this is because we are talking about the messaging side, and we're just using some, in some cases, not actual data so that we can just emphasize how you would use your own data. And in this case, a sample survey question might be, I intend to avoid non-marital sex. Many policymakers may believe that that's not possible for young people. And so to be able to show some entry survey results from your own pre and post tests, or even if you have more rigorous studies like an impact study, then to show that and communicate that to them is really pretty powerful. We also will put in the references at the end some strategies that that you can look up on your own for effective dissemination of research to policymakers. So when we get to those slides at the end, keep that in mind. So now I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Wood, who is one of our guest grantees, and she is going to share how they, in their program, have communicated survey results with policymakers. Catherine?
Thank you, Jerry. I wanted to share with you, especially about the importance of using your evaluations. Our federal and state funding requires that we do evaluation, and I've participated in evaluation since 1987. We spend lots of money, all of the grantees spend lots of money on evaluation, so it's important to not put your evaluation on the shelf and not use it. And one of the things that we have done, and this has been a 20-year project, we have shared information with our legislators every year, also with schools and parents and community stakeholders. We want people in the community to know what we're doing. And so as we've shared with legislators every year, they are very interested in what's happening and that we can make a difference. And so it's important that you share with your legislators and get to know them. And policy members at every level, even the state or even your school boards. So we have done that, and it has changed what we get in funding from our state. So the second thing I wanted to talk about just a minute is making your evaluation palatable to the public. Different evaluators over the years have helped us by updating survey questions and then making graphs of those to help the public understand the results of our evaluations, and that has helped a lot. RUC is the fiscal agent for the Ohio collaboration, and RUC is Relationships Under Construction. And we are currently funded under Title V state funds and in our Ohio budget. So we are a collaboration of 10 organizations in the state of Ohio that includes RUC. So from 2011 to 2020, our members participated in 2 evaluations, both collectively and individually, and are continuing to do so with a federal survey. And our evaluator provides reports for both individual organizations and the collective results. Those reports allow each member of the collaboration to provide reports to their stakeholders, and together we can provide a collective report to the state stakeholders. So together with our evaluators, we produce reports that not only have the evaluation data, but also related student and classroom teacher comments, which makes the data more meaningful when you put the 2 of them together. Well, RUC is the fiscal agent for the Ohio Collaborative, and we completed a 4-year evaluation just recently, and the project served 219,838 students from October of 2016 through September of 2020. During that time, COVID reduced our service numbers by at least 40,000 students. State funding from the Ohio budget allowed 20 more thousand students to be served from 2018 to 20, which helped our evaluation results. One organization was not able to complete their part of the evaluation due to the schools being closed because of COVID, but the other organizations who participated completed the evaluation with 4,284 students in 20 schools and 5 control schools. The results were amazing and presented to legislators in 2020 and again in 2021, resulting in greater funding and then doubling of our funding from the state legislature for 21 through 23. So just thinking of that, using evaluation results to communicate with legislators and then give them usable information to inform their decisions, especially about funding and the long-term impact of that funding, is so important. Our evaluation asks questions that funders want to know. Research shows that if teens engage in sexual activity, they will be very likely to be involved in illegally using drugs and alcohol and participating in other risky behaviors. And in the state of Ohio, teen pregnancies have been reduced by 60%, teen abortions by 50%, and STDs are reduced in the counties where we can show that there is more SRAE programming. Very important to be able to work with your county health departments to find out that information. So Our evaluators also provide a return on investment report that we can share with legislators. So the project over that last 4-year period, it was a return on investment of an average of $20 for every $1 invested, which, if you know information about that, is very, very good. They do this by calculating the dollars saved when students show a change in behavior from pre to post, and whether they are involved in risky behaviors or not. When students are not involved in risky behaviors, it saves the government millions of dollars. So investment in SRAE programs are very worthwhile. So legislators want to know that our program will save taxpayer dollars. Ohio schools backed our efforts by providing letters of support, and during COVID classified our collaborators and instructors as essential educators so they could enter school buildings to make presentations during COVID, or present classes virtually if the schools were closed. So the collaboration, we shared the letters with legislators. School administrators have also confirmed that attendance is higher during our presentations than at any other time during the school year. And that was important for legislators to hear. Evaluation provides evidence that our programs are doing what they set out to do, and the results are saving lives from poverty, as the success sequence shows. So relationships under construction and our collaborators use stakeholders, especially legislators, so they can make wise decisions for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. We appreciate you sharing how you've worked with legislators and how you've used evaluation data. That's very important. And I know that there are many programs who haven't had the opportunity to do evaluations, but you have just kind of helped us see how important it is to have that evaluation data. Let's talk just for a minute about data visualization. And because data visualization is really what everybody has been talking about this whole webinar, even though they haven't had the opportunity or chance to show some of that, but it's translating information into a visual context that makes it easier to show trends and comparison and changes over time. One quick story. I was sharing with some legislators on a program that we wanted to see increased funding. And I spent a day or two there talking to a number of legislators, and it didn't seem like they were really getting the information that I was trying to share. And I realized that I really didn't have appropriate visualization for them. I was going in and just talking. And so I went back to the drawing board and put together about a 3 or 4 page spiral notebook, which was just very simple. And we Xeroxed color graphs and bar graphs and pages communicating the key points that we wanted to communicate, and went back and began to do the same thing again, and it was like night and day. They understood, they asked questions, and eventually the project was funded. So translating your data into very quick and easy to understand visualized communication really makes a huge difference. And so some of the tips there on the slide that you see is ensure that visualizations can be quickly understood, use different colors to compare or contrast trends, clearly title and label all access points if you're showing graphs, indicate baseline data from before program intervention if you have that, and show data indicating changes in knowledge, attitudes, intentions, skills, and self-efficacy. Highlight results that represent the key concepts of the SRAE approach. And I was advised early on that more white space is better. And so don't clutter it up, have great titles, good color, and communicate your information clearly. I'm going to show you just a couple of very quick examples of the kind of thing that you can think about. This is actually a survey question that comes from actual data. As I mentioned, some of the examples we've given, and we've noted that in each of the slides, was just from, not from actual data. This is actual data from an unnamed SRAE grantee's pre and post survey results. And you can see the question was, do you agree or disagree with this statement? I plan to talk with my parent, guardian, or trusted adult about puberty. And the entry survey results had 29% that strongly agreed and 3% that strongly disagreed. And then in the exit survey, it jumped to 40% and 2%. And so you can see by showing that on a graph how impactful that can be to communicate that information. A second one is similar. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? The next one is that most teens my age are having sex. And again, this one was talked about earlier. But you can again see how you can display the data in a way that immediately communicates a message. And you do have the graph there. You do have some wording. You do communicate what the percentages are. But the visualization itself communicates very clearly. And again, this one was taken from actual data. This is again just showing percentage of high school students who ever had sexual intercourse 91 to 2019. And that is taken from the national survey, the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And so you can build some national data into your own data just to show either that you're on the same trend or you're not on the same trend. And that is usually something that's quite effective as well. And then finally, I want to show you a infographic that is taken off of Exchange, and it's communicating effectively, data visualization. And so you can see the kind of visualization that this particular example that FISBE has put on the Exchange gives you. There's the title, the challenge, our impact. The teen birth rate has declined by over 40%. And so each one of those you can see immediately just communicates because it's visualized. If you had that just wording on a page with bullets, it wouldn't have nearly the impact that it has when you visualize it and pick out the key points that you're trying to message to your particular audience. And so these are examples that that maybe can give you some guidance. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to moderate our questions.
I'm blown away. I mean, this is great content. And I don't know that it came out to all attendees, but William had written and Julie had passed on the message to the panelists that he just felt like this was such a powerful workshop. And then also, William, you had put in the chat that had been passed to me that, you know, could some of this language be passed along to you? And in just a few moments after we have a short time of question and answers, that I'd like to open up and ask you to go ahead and put your questions in the chat. and we will read those and guide those to the appropriate panelist who might be able to address that. So feel free to write your question in the chat box. But in just a few minutes, we will be sharing the contact information for each of our panelists. If you have further questions, you're going to want to grab your cell phone out probably and just screenshot the screen that will show their contact information. But feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the chat box. While you're doing that, and I'm going to read and see if those are coming in, I had a couple questions that popped into my head, but I did want to also make a couple statements. Jerry, when you talked about, talking to policymakers, I just thought it was so powerful when you kind of pointed out, but you didn't say it like I'm going to say it, but it's our job to connect the dots to them. And I think, Catherine, you alluded to that as well when talking to policymakers, so here's our results. What does that mean? And Catherine, when you talked about having the correlating the school attendance with your program, I have never thought of that myself. And I've been in the field for over 20 years. That is brilliant. And just the idea of using that return on investment report that you had your evaluators, supply. That's a great point to what Jerry was talking about when he was talking about talking to the stakeholders. So let's see. In the chat, it looks like Charlene Bosley, you are being asked about your survey questions and talking to parents and wanting to know if you would be able to disseminate those. So William, that might be the intellectual property of Clarity. I'll let you reach out to Charlene directly. So you're going to want to screenshot the screen here shortly when I share her contact information. So I had another question come in to me privately that asked about, let's see, I believe this was for Bruno. When you are going to these health fairs, can you give an example of what type of what type of activity you're doing to draw attention? How are you finding out who would be interested in what, the pamphlet that you're going to offer? So can you expand on that a little bit?
So typically at these community fairs, everyone's really just like browsing, not only the people from the community, but also I don't want to say panelists, but the other organizations as well. And we're just networking for the most part. Everyone comes by and they come and take a pamphlet, and they literally everyone's coming around. You don't have to you don't have to have like sparkling lights or anything for anyone to come and speak to you. Like they come and talk to you, and they ask you who you are. Usually we have certain things that they could take, like a bag full of different favors and things that have our branding on it. They take a pamphlet, and we just talk to them about what we do in the community and in the schools. It's really easy. It's not really that hard to just have people come and talk to you because they come,
It doesn't have to be sparkly, just that you care.
Some people have snacks.
Snacks, Jolly Ranchers, always good, right? I really thought you were going to say, we have a big package. We remember when you had said and shared that quantitative data or the qualitative data, you were saying something about, I know, you were saying that the comment came in that I was a gift and that meant so much to us.
Yeah.
I figured you had a big gift box.
not a little, we do have that in our, we do have that in our lessons, but we can it's an option for us to bring that with us to show that, hey, this is how we convey this message that you are a gift. We use some of the different icebreakers and the different illustrations within our curriculum at these events too, to show what we do in the classroom. So that'll be an example of that.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Let's see. Paulette is asking about wondering if they could work with other organizations that would teach simultaneously to our students about this aspect. I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, but the exchange has a really incredibly great resource on it for grantees to be able to communicate with one another. And that would be a really great opportunity for us to work better together and share our ideas as well there. And I'm going to be referencing that here in just a few minutes as well. I just wanted to see what other questions are
Tracy,
coming
can I
in.
interrupt to say that Paulette's question is about financial literacy, and I know there are some SRA programs that supplement their programs with programs for financial literacy, and it segues very well with the success sequence.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also wondering if there are any of our guest grantees who use any kind of financial literacy in your programs.
Great point, Marianne. Go ahead. Guest grantees.
We actually do have a financial lesson in our both of our lower high school and upper high school curriculums. We literally just implemented it because of our grant. We just started it out. We've been like doing mock lessons in our office to kind of fine tune what we should add, what we should remove. So yeah, we do that. We just added that recently.
Great. I had
And
another. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Marianne.
I do know that organizations have, sometimes they'll have an outside organization come in on a certain day to talk
Yeah.
about financial literacy, or they will refer students to, a group that does that. So,
And what a beautiful way to, enjoy a community partnership as well. I had another question about to Charlene Bosley. How do you know that the students talk to their parents? Is there some way that you are assured that conversations are happening?
I did forget to mention on the homework page that they take home with them. There is an area for the go-to adult or parent to sign and date and return to the teacher.
Okay, great. And Stephanie Pecan, could you share with us how often do you have the opportunity to share with the schools and the committees? Do you do that after each presentation, or do you just have an annual meeting? Can you share with us a little bit more about working with the schools?
Sure, definitely. After, each time we work with the schools and do a full program with their students, I do put a report together. We have the pre and post report from our curriculum. We also have another survey through our organization, which is another needs assessment where we ask students, what are, topics you think are relevant to teens today? What's the best thing about your life right now? What would you change? What's one question you always want to ask but never have? So that's another report that we give them as well, because it gives us insight into their students, helps us to kind of modify or make sure we're emphasizing messaging that we see might be a need, and what we've seen from the results from the students. But we give that to the schools as well. So we give these reports to the teachers that we work with directly. We send it to the principals as well. Presenting to the sex ed advisory boards, that's really something that has come up more recently, really just in the last few months. So, but yeah, we anticipate doing more of that as well.
Yeah, and we would be wise to, right? Share our results and the power of our program. So thank you. For the sake of time, I want to move through the next few slides just to make sure that you are aware of some resources. Jerry mentioned some references that you could get more information about some of the related topics that we've talked about. So if you want to grab out your cell phone, the slides will be made available on the exchange. But again, as Julie pointed out at the beginning of the webinar, that these might not be available until some compliance issues are handled. So it could be a bit. So would you grab out your cell phone and take a picture of this reference screen if you're wanting some more immediate opportunity to dig into some references. Also, I wanted to make you aware of some continued learning available to you. I want you to watch for the release of a tip sheet. Julie, next slide, please, that we have created to kind of piggyback off of this information for those of you who found this so helpful. Watch for the release of the tip sheet to extend your learning of the impact of sharing survey results with your stakeholders. And additionally, there are 2 upcoming cluster calls you won't want to miss about facilitating conversations among SRAE facilitators, and then that was February 2nd, and then on March 2nd, there is a webinar on diversity and inclusion, very important topics. Next slide. Don't forget to visit the Exchange. I know I've mentioned that a few times, but I think it's just such a powerful resource. There are other resources about other topics you can even search in the search bar for. There is the Grantee Network. That's actually the literal title of almost like a Facebook type of a page concept where you can post questions and have other grantees weigh in and offer suggestions, and you could weigh in and offer suggestions. There's an events calendar, more training opportunities are posted there. And I want to remind you, as a grantee, you have opportunity for technical assistance. And that is in no way, shape, or form indication of any weakness in programming. It's just you saying, hey, contact my federal project officer because I have questions or would like more assistance, wondering how other people are handling certain situations. And it's available to you as a grantee at no additional cost to you. So last page, Julie, I believe. Here we go. Here's the contact page that you have the opportunity to, again, screenshot, unless you're willing to wait until this is posted on the Exchange. You want to take out your phone and screenshot this if you have further questions for each of our amazing panelists who have done such a superb job. If we were together physically, I would have you all, give them a round of applause, but I'll just have to imagine that you are. But this is an opportunity for you to reach out to any of these amazing people for further information on the content that they have so graciously shared with us. And last slide, Julie. There we go. Thank you for attending. I've gotten some really great comments in the chat about how much this has been meaningful to people, and we're so glad you've enjoyed it, and it's been our pleasure to be here today. I will hand it back to Julie for a conclusion.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you all for joining us today on our webinar. We encourage you to complete the short post-webinar evaluation survey that will appear in a separate window when you exit the webinar. Again, this will conclude today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great day.